The great hall was silent. Hundreds of beings from across the galaxy sat in their seats, waiting. Some had wings, some had scales, and some looked like walking plants. This was the Galactic Council, where the most powerful species made decisions that affected billions of lives. Sat in the human section, his hands folded calmly on the table. He wore a simple black suit, nothing fancy. Next to him checked her data pad, recording everything. They were the only two humans in a room full of aliens who had traveled the stars for thousands of years. At the center of the hall stood Commander of the Empire. He was massive, nearly 3 meters tall, covered in dark armor that reflected the lights above. His face had 4 eyes and a mouth full of sharp teeth. Behind him, 3 other officers stood at attention. "Honorable Council," began, his voice booming through the chamber. "I come before you today with a simple request. The planet Earth sits in a strategic location. It has water, minerals, and land that the Empire needs. The humans who live there are primitive. They have only been in space for 300 years. They still fight among themselves. They are weak and divided." Felt his jaw tighten, but he said nothing. Glanced at him, her expression unreadable. Continued, "We propose to take control of Earth. It is a natural expansion of our territory. We have conquered 73 worlds. Earth will be the 74th. We ask the Council's blessing, as is tradition." Murmurs filled the hall. Some species nodded in agreement. Others looked uncertain. They had a reputation. They were warriors, conquerors. Once they decided to take a world, they rarely failed. From the elevated platform where the eldest members sat, a voice spoke. It was old and tired, but it carried authority. "Commander, I must object." Everyone turned to look. Elder Morpheus stood slowly. He was ancient, his skin like weathered stone, his eyes pure white. He had lived for over 1,000 years and had seen empires rise and fall. "I have studied the humans," Morpheus said. "I have watched them for 200 years. I tell you now, with all my experience, do not attack them. You will never escape their fury." Laughter erupted from the section. Even some other species chuckled, smiled, showing his teeth. "With respect, Elder, you have grown old and cautious. The humans are nothing. Look at their history. They fight each other constantly. Wars, conflicts, disagreements. They cannot even unite their own planet. How can they stand against the Empire?" Morpheus shook his head slowly. "You do not understand. Their conflicts have made them strong, not weak. They have learned to fight in every terrain, in every condition. They adapt faster than any species I have ever seen. And when they are truly threatened, when an outside force attacks them, they become something else entirely." "Fairy tale-y," said dismissively. "The Elder speaks of legends, not facts. The humans have small ships, limited weapons, and no real military tradition in space. We have studied them too. They pose no threat." Another, a floating jellyfish-like creature, spoke up. "They make a valid point. Earth is not protected by any treaty. The humans have not proven themselves worthy of Council protection. Perhaps it is better if they join the Empire. It would bring order to their world." Stood up slowly. All eyes turned to him. He was not particularly tall or impressive compared to most beings in the room. He looked ordinary, human, fragile. "May I speak?" he asked quietly. The council head, a being made of pure energy, nodded. "The human ambassador may address the council." Walked to the center of the floor. He looked up at who towered over him. Then he turned to face the council members. "You are right," said. "We are young. We have only been in space for 3 centuries. We do fight among ourselves. We have wars, conflicts, and problems. We are not perfect." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But Elder Morpheus is also right. You do not understand us. You see our conflicts and think we are weak. You see our emotions and think we are unstable. You see our short history in space and think we are children." His voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath. "We are not children, we are survivors. Every war we fought on Earth taught us something. Every conflict made us stronger. Every time we were knocked down, we got back up. That is what humans do. We endure, we adapt, we never give up. Pretty words said, but words will not stop plasma cannons. Look directly at the commander. Neither will plasma cannons stop us, but you will find that out yourself. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Stood up, joining, she looked at the council. We came here hopping for protection under galactic law. We came here believing that the council would stand for justice. We see now that we were wrong. The council head spoke. We must vote, all in favor of protecting Earth from expansion. A few hands went up, maybe 20 out of 300 species. All in favor of allowing it to proceed. A few more hands. All who abstain. The majority of the council raised their hands or appendages or whatever they used to vote. They would not protect Earth, but they would not openly support the invasion either. It was the coward's choice, the safe choice. Smiled broadly. The council has spoken. The Empire will proceed with the annexation of Earth. We will be merciful to those who surrender quickly. And walked back to their seats. They gathered their materials in silence. As they headed toward the exit, Morpheus stopped them. I am sorry, the elder said. I tried to warn them. Looked at the ancient being. You did what you could, thank you for that. What will you do now? Morpheus asked. Answered, her voice cold. We will prepare, we will fight, and we will show the galaxy what happens when you threaten humanity. As they left the chamber, activated his communicator. This is Ambassador to Earth Command. The Council has refused to act. They are coming. Begin Protocol Omega. Full mobilization. Every ship, every soldier, every resource. We are at war. The response came immediately. Understood, Ambassador. Earth stands ready. Behind them, in the Great Hall, the Council moved on to other business. They had already forgotten about the small blue planet and its primitive inhabitants. They did not know that they had just witnessed the beginning of something that would change the galaxy forever. They prepared their fleet, confident in their superiority. They had 300 warships, millions of soldiers, and centuries of conquest behind them. What they did not have was understanding. They did not understand what it meant to attack a species that had clawed its way up from the caves, that had survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. They did not understand that humanity's greatest strength was not technology or numbers. It was the simple, terrifying fact that humans, when pushed to the edge, when facing extinction, would burn the entire galaxy down before they let themselves be enslaved. They would learn this lesson, but by the time they did, it would be far too late. 6 months later, they came. Admiral stood in the command center deep beneath Sol. Screens covered every wall, showing data from satellites, defense platforms, and patrol ships. His officers worked quietly at their stations, professional and focused. They had drilled for this day hundreds of times. Now it was real. Sir, we have contact, Lieutenant reported. Multiple hyperspace signatures detected at the edge of the solar system. 300 ships, configuration. Nodded, sound general quarters. Activate all defense platforms. Contact the civilian evacuation centers. Begin emergency protocols. Alarms rang across Earth. In orbit, massive defense stations powered up their weapons. Fighter pilots ran to their ships. Ground forces moved to their positions. And across the planet, billions of people looked up at the sky, knowing that their lives were about to change forever. Captain Sara commanded the defense platform, one of 40 stations that circled Earth. Her crew of 200 had trained together for 3 years. They were ready. All systems green, her tactical officer Minu reported. Weapons charged, shields at maximum. Sara looked at the main screen. The fleet was moving toward Earth, not hiding, not rushing. They came slowly, confidently, like predators who knew their prey could not escape. A message came through on all frequencies. Space appeared on every screen across Earth. Humans of Earth, I am commander of the Empire. You are surrounded. You are outmatched. Surrender now and we will be merciful. Resist and you will be destroyed. You have 1 hour to respond. In sole command, Admiral looked at his officers. Do we have a response prepared? Yes, sir, his communication officer said. Send it. On every ship the response came. It was not words. It was an old Earth song, defiant and proud, about never giving up, never surrendering. They did not understand the words, but they understood the message clearly enough. His eyes narrowed. They choose death. All ships attack formation, begin bombardment. The fleet split into groups. The first wave, 50 ships, moved toward the defense platforms. They opened fire. Plasma bolts lit up space like lightning. The first shots hit shields, making them flare bright blue. Sora held onto her chair as the station shook. Return fire, she ordered. Spoke, sending solid metal slugs at incredible speed. Other platforms joined in. The darkness of space became a storm of light and death. 2 defense platforms exploded in the first 30 seconds. 3 more took critical damage, but the humans were hitting back hard. A cruiser lost its shields and took a round straight through its engine section. It drifted away, trailing fire and debris. Enemy fighters incoming, Minyu shouted. 200 contacts. From Earth, human fighters launched to meet them. Captain Jinnah led Squadron 88, 12 small but fast ships. She had been a test pilot before the war. Now she was a combat leader. Stay tight, stay smart, she said over the squadron channel. Remember your training. The 2 fighter groups met between Earth and the defense platforms. It was chaos. Ships spun and turned, fired and dodged. Explosions bloomed in the darkness. Jinnah destroyed 2 enemy fighters in the first minute, but her wingman took a hit and had to retreat. They are good, her number 2 pilot said, breathing hard. Better than the simulations. Then we will be better than them, Jinnah replied. She rolled her ship, lined up a shot and fired. Another enemy fighter went dark. But there were so many. For every ship they destroyed, 2 more took its place. The human fighters were being pushed back. On alarm screamed. Shield failure in Section 7, an engineer named called out. We cannot hold much longer. Sora made a decision. All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for collision course. We are going to ram the closest capital ship. Her crew did not question. They knew what this meant. They knew they might not survive. But they also knew that other stations needed time, that evacuation ships needed to escape, that every second mattered. Engineering, give me full power to engines, Sora ordered. Tactical, target that cruiser at heading 270. Everyone else get to the escape pods. That is an order. Captain, you need to leave too, Minyu said. Someone has to pilot this station, Sora replied calmly. Go, tell Earth we did our job. The crew evacuated. Minyu was the last to leave, looking back at his captain one final time. Sora gave him a small smile and a nod. Then he was gone. Sora strapped into the command chair and took manual control. Turned, its damaged frame groaning. She aimed at the cruiser, the one that had destroyed 2 other platforms. She pushed the engines to maximum. For Earth, she whispered. Struck the cruiser like a hammer hitting glass. Both ships exploded in a ball of white fire. The blast wave knocked nearby fighters off course. For a moment, the battle paused as everyone saw what had happened. Then the humans fought even harder. Admiral watched from Seoul as his forces gave everything they had. 17 ships destroyed, 23 platforms gone, thousands of people dead. But they were hurting too. They had lost 30 ships and their admiral's flagship was crippled by that last collision. After 4 hours, they pulled back. They had not expected this. They had not expected humans to fight so hard, to sacrifice so much, to refuse to give up even when losing. Now commanding from a different ship, looked at the damage reports. His second-in-command approached him carefully. Commander, we won the battle, but the cost was higher than projected. The humans fought like animals cornered. They used tactics we did not anticipate. "They cannot sustain this," said. "We will rebuild our forces and attack again. They are running out of ships and platforms." What did not know was that he had already made a fatal mistake. He had given humans time, and time was all they needed. Across Earth, factories that once made cars and appliances now made ships and weapons. Every nation put aside old conflicts. Every resource was directed toward one goal: survival. Young people lined up to join the military. Scientists worked around the clock on new weapons. Engineers designed faster ships. In space, human vessels searched through the debris fields looking for survivors. They found Minu and most of his crew in their escape pods. They found fighters that had run out of fuel but whose pilots were still alive. They saved everyone they could. And they remembered everyone they lost. Admiral stood before a memorial wall, looking at the names of the dead. Captain Sora's name was there, along with thousands of others. He placed his hand on the cold metal. "You bought us time," he said quietly. "We will not waste it." Around Earth, new defense platforms were already being built. Faster, stronger, smarter. The humans had learned from the first battle. They always learned. Above the planet, the stars were cold and distant. The fleet regrouped at the edge of the solar system, preparing for their next attack. They still thought they would win. They still thought humans would eventually break. They were wrong. In sole command, Admiral gave his orders. "Begin Phase 2. We are not just going to defend anymore. We are going to attack. Find their supply lines, find their bases, find everything they have." "Sir," an officer said hesitantly, "we do not have enough ships to fight them across multiple systems." Looked at him. "Then we will build more. And until we do, we will make every ship count. The wanted a war. We will give them one they will never forget." Across Earth's military channels, a message went out. It was simple, only 3 words, but every human who heard it understood. "Remember, remember Sora. Remember what they tried to take from us." The first battle was over. The real war was just beginning. 18 months passed. They expected a quick war, maybe a year at most. They got something very different. Commander sat in the dark bridge of his ship, Phantom Protocol. Everything was black, even the lights. His crew of 40 specialists worked in silence. They had just entered space, 200 light-years from Earth. No one knew they were here. That was the point. "Target located," his navigator whispered. "Supply station, orbit around the 4th planet, 20 cargo ships docked, light defenses." Studied the tactical display. The station fed 3 battle groups. Destroy it, and those groups would run out of food, ammunition, and fuel within weeks. "Prepare infiltration drones," he ordered. "We go in quiet, no shots unless necessary." Phantom Protocol drifted closer, powered down to barely active levels. To any scanner, it looked like a piece of debris. The humans had learned this trick from old submarine warfare on Earth. In space, it worked even better. The drones launched silently. They were small, barely bigger than a fist, and they attached to the station's hull like insects. Then they began cutting through the metal with laser precision. Inside the station, workers moved cargo containers unaware. They were not soldiers, just support staff. They thought they were safe, deep in their own territory. They were wrong. The drones planted charges on the station's reactor core and fuel storage. Waited until all 20 cargo ships had docked. Then he gave the signal. The station exploded from the inside. The cargo ships, trapped at the docking bays, went up in a chain reaction. In 30 seconds, they lost enough supplies to feed 10,000 soldiers for 6 months. Phantom Protocol was already gone, disappearing into the darkness of space before anyone could respond. This happened 17 times in 2 months. Supply stations, fuel depots, communication relays. The humans did not fight fair. They hit where it hurt, then vanished like ghosts. On they studied reports with growing frustration. How are they doing this? How are humans, primitive humans, operating in our space? Where are they getting their intelligence? His intelligence officer, a younger named, had the answer. Sir, we captured a human data specialist last week. She explained everything before she died. And they have broken our communications encryption. Every message we send, they read. Every fleet movement, they know about before we do. Slammed his fist on the table. How? Our encryption is military grade. Looked uncomfortable. The human was named. She was a mathematics expert. She said their computers and her team worked for 9 months to break it. She seemed proud of it, even knowing she would die. Felt cold anger building. These humans were not fighting like civilized species. They were fighting like survivors, like people who had nothing to lose. Change all encryption codes immediately, he ordered. Double them, triple them. Sir, that will take months to implement across all our forces. Then do it faster. But the damage was done. Humanity knew where every ship was. They knew which systems had weak defenses. They knew which colonies were most important. And they attacked. Colonel led the ground assault on Colony 7. The planet had been human once, captured in the first months of the war. 5,000 humans had been enslaved there, forced to work in mines. His mission was simple: get them back. His Marines dropped from orbit in stealth pods, landing in the jungle 20 kilometers from the mining complex. 200 soldiers, the best humanity had. They moved through the alien forest like shadows. The guards never saw them coming. His team hit the security center first, taking it in 40 seconds of brutal close combat. Then they moved to the slave barracks. The humans inside looked broken, thin and weak from months of hard labor. But when they saw and his Marines, their eyes lit up with hope. "We are taking you home," said simply. The evacuation ships landed in the middle of the complex. Reinforcements arrived, but people held them back. The fighting was savage. House to house, room to room. The Marines used every trick they knew: traps, ambushes, grenades in enclosed spaces. A young Marine named took a plasma bolt to the chest, protecting a group of freed prisoners. His last words were, "Get them out. That is all that matters." They got everyone out. All 5,000 former slaves now free. The cost was 37 Marines dead including, but would make that trade every time. As the ships left orbit, looked back at the burning colony. "Mark this location. We will come back. We will liberate every human in space, every single one." The empire was starting to crack, not from military defeat but from something worse: doubt. In their capital city, protests began. Civilians, tired of the war, tired of losses, demanded their leaders negotiate peace. The humans had killed soldiers and destroyed military targets, but they had not attacked civilian areas. They fought with honor, even in their brutality. This confused their own wars of conquest had always involved destroying civilian populations to break enemy morale, but humans fought differently. They were ruthless to soldiers, merciful to civilians. They took prisoners and treated them according to rules of war that most species had forgotten. A soldier captured during a raid was interviewed by media after being released in a prisoner exchange. "They gave us food, medical care, and sent us home. They treated our wounds even though we had killed their people. I do not understand these humans. They fight like demons, but they act like they have principles." Watched this interview with growing rage. The human strategy was working. They were not just winning battles. They were winning minds. They were showing the population that their empire was not noble or just. It was simply brutal. A secret message reached from an unexpected source. Elder Morpheus, the ancient who had warned against attacking Earth. "Commander, I offer my services as a mediator. End this war before it destroys your people." Sent his reply immediately. "How do I stop them? Tell me how to make the humans negotiate." Morpheus's response was simple. You cannot stop them. You can only surrender and hope they show you mercy. They will never stop until every human is free and every threat is eliminated. This is what I tried to tell you. Humans do not know how to quit. Deleted the message. He would not surrender. The Empire had never surrendered in 500 years of conquest. He would not be the first commander to do so. But in private, he was afraid. For the first time in his life was truly afraid. The humans kept coming. Every week another raid, another supply line cut, another colony liberated. They were not winning because they had better technology or more ships. They were winning because they refused to lose. On Earth, factories produced ships at an incredible rate. New designs, faster and deadlier. The economy had become a war machine. People worked double shifts voluntarily. Children collected scrap metal for recycling. Every person contributed. Admiral received a report from intelligence officers' team, now led by her successor. Sir, we have located this exact coordinates. We also have data on their defense network. Looked at the star map. The Prime, the heart of the Empire, taking it would end the war. How long until we can mount an invasion? He asked. 18 months, sir. Maybe 2 years. We need more ships. Then we build more ships, said. Begin planning the final assault. This war ends at there. We will show them what happens when you attack humanity. In deep space, Commander and his team destroyed their 34th target. In the liberated colonies, freed humans began rebuilding their lives. On the front lines, soldiers like Colonel kept fighting, kept pushing forward. The Empire had thought humans were weak. They had thought wrong. Now they would pay the price for that mistake. The long hunt was not over yet, but everyone could see where it was leading. To Prime, to the end. 3 years after the first attack on Earth, the human fleet arrived at Prime. Admiral stood on the bridge of her flagship, Retribution. Around her, 800 warships moved in perfect formation. They had been built in Earth's forges, crewed by men and women who had grown up during the war. This generation knew only struggle and sacrifice. They were hard, focused, and completely committed to finishing what they had started. All ships report ready, her tactical officer reported. We have visual on the planet. Prime filled the view screen. It was beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents. Cities glittered on the night side. Billions of lived there, unaware that their world was about to become a battlefield. Around the planet, 2,000 defense platforms bristled with weapons. Warships patrolled in layers of defensive formations. This was the most heavily defended world in the Empire. It had never been attacked, not once in 500 years. Until today. Send the message, ordered. Across all communication channels, her words went out. This is Admiral of the Human Defense Force. 3 years ago, you attacked Earth without provocation. You killed millions of our people. You enslaved our colonies. You said we were weak and would not fight back. You were wrong. Today, we bring the war to your home. Surrender now or face the consequences. On the surface in the Imperial Palace, listened to the message. His staff stood around him, waiting for orders. He looked at each of them, seeing fear in their eyes. The humans are bluffing, he said, trying to sound confident. They do not have the strength to take this world. We have every advantage. His military advisor spoke quietly. Commander, they have 800 ships. Our intelligence says each one is more advanced than what they had 3 years ago. They have been learning, adapting. Our fleet is large, but many ships are old and crew morale is low. Half the Empire wants to surrender. Then half the Empire are cowards, snarled. Send the order. All forces attack, destroy the human fleet. The Battle of Prime began. Space erupted in fire and light. Missiles streaked between ships. Energy beams cut through armor. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. It was chaos on a scale never seen before. Captain Jinnah led Squadron 88 from her fighter. She had survived 3 years of war, becoming one of humanity's best pilots. Her squadron's motto was painted on every ship: "Remember Earth." "All units focus on the defense platforms," she ordered. "Clear a path for the landing forces." Her fighters dove through the defensive fire like birds through a storm. Plasma bolts filled the space around them. 2 of her pilots died in the first minute, but the rest kept going. They had to. There was no other choice. They reached the first platform and launched their torpedoes. The platform's shields flickered and died. It exploded in a ball of flame. 15 more platforms met the same fate in the next 10 minutes. But the cost was brutal. Jinnah watched as Squadron 42 was wiped out completely. 12 pilots gone in seconds. Ships exploded around her constantly. Every breath might be her last. "Keep going," she shouted into her radio. "We break through or we die trying." On the surface, Colonel and his Marines prepared for the ground assault. His force had grown to 20,000 soldiers. They sat in their drop ships, waiting for the signal. Many were young, barely 20 years old. Some had lost parents in the first battle. Others had been rescued from slave camps. "Listen up," said over the battalion channel. "Today we end this war. Today we show the galaxy what humans are made of. We will take this planet, we will capture their leaders, and we will make them answer for what they did. But remember, soldiers are targets, civilians are not. We fight with honor. Anyone who harms an innocent will answer to me personally. Understood?" "Understood, sir," 20,000 voices replied. The dropships launched. The descent was hell. Anti-aircraft fire filled the sky. Dropships exploded, sending hundreds of soldiers to their deaths before they could even fight, but enough made it through. Ship crashed in the middle of a military base. The doors blew open and his Marines poured out, firing. The defenders fought back hard. The battle was close, brutal, personal. Guns fired at point-blank range. Soldiers wrestled in hand-to-hand combat. A medic named ran through the chaos, treating wounded Marines. She was small, barely 5 feet tall, but she was fearless. She pulled a wounded soldier behind cover, working to stop the bleeding even as plasma bolts burned the air around her. "Stay with me," she told the soldier. "You are going home, I promise." An explosion nearby knocked her down. Her ears rang. She looked up and saw civilians running in panic. A building was collapsing, and a group of children were trapped in the path of falling debris. Ran without thinking. She reached the children and pushed them toward safety. The building came down. She tried to cover them with her body, knowing it probably would not be enough. But someone else got there first. An adult, maybe a parent, threw themselves over the children. The debris crushed them, but the children survived. Pulled the children out, checked them for injuries. They were scared, crying, but alive. A woman ran up, probably their mother, and grabbed them. She looked at with wide eyes, shocked that a human soldier had saved her children. Just nodded and ran back to help her wounded Marines. But someone had filmed it. The image spread across both human and networks. A human medic, covered in blood and dirt, protecting children from harm. The fighting continued for 3 days. The space battle slowly turned in humanity's favor. Admirals' ships were better coordinated, their crews more determined. One by one, the defensive layers broke. On the ground, human forces pushed toward the capital city. The fighting was savage. Buildings became fortresses. Streets became killing zones. Thousands died on both sides. But the soldiers were tired. Many had been fighting for 3 years, seeing friends die, watching their empire crumble. When human forces offered them surrender terms, many took them. Entire units laid down their weapons. Colonel reached the Imperial Palace on the 4th day. His force had been cut in half, but they had made it. Was inside, along with his personal guard. "This is your last chance," broadcast on all frequencies. "Surrender and you will be treated fairly. Fight and you will die." Response came quickly. "I will never surrender to humans." Sighed, "Then we are coming in." The assault on the palace was brutal. The guards were elite soldiers, the best they had. They fought with desperate courage, knowing they were the last line of defense. Room by room, floor by floor, the humans pushed forward. Found in the throne room, the commander stood alone, his armor damaged, holding a plasma rifle. Around him lay the bodies of his last guards. "You have lost," said, his weapon pointed at. "It is over." "We could have ruled the galaxy together," said bitterly. "The Inhumans united, but you chose war." "You attacked us," replied. "You killed our people, you started this. We are just finishing it." Raised his rifle, fired first. The commander fell, finally defeated. In orbit, Admiral watched as the last warships surrendered or were destroyed. The battle was over. Humanity had won. But she felt no joy, only exhaustion. She thought of all the people who had died to reach this moment. Sarah, who sacrificed herself at the first battle. The pilots lost in every engagement. The Marines who would never go home. "Admiral, we have control of the planet," an officer reported. "Government is requesting terms." Nodded slowly. "Tell them we will meet in 1 hour. Prepare the surrender documents." The war was over, but the hard part was just beginning. Now humanity had to decide what to do with the Empire: destroy it, occupy it, or try something different. On the surface, treated wounded soldiers alongside wounded humans. She had saved lives on both sides during the battle. She did not see enemies anymore, just people who had suffered. Maybe, she thought, there was hope for peace after all. 5 years after the war ended, the Galactic Council met again. The Great Hall looked the same, but everything else had changed. Ambassador walked to his seat. His hair had more gray now. Lines marked his face. The war had aged him like it had aged all humanity, but he walked with quiet confidence. Earth was no longer the weak planet begging for protection. They had proven themselves in blood and fire. Beside him, Admiral took her seat. She wore her military uniform, medals covering her chest. Each medal represented a battle, a victory, a moment when humanity had refused to give up. She did not wear them with pride, only with memory. The delegation entered next. They wore simple robes now, not armor. At their head was the first elected leader of the new republic. He had been a mid-level officer during the war, one who had surrendered early and helped negotiate peace. His people had chosen him to rebuild their world. Bowed slightly too, and as he passed, a gesture of respect, maybe even apology. They nodded back. The past could not be forgotten, but perhaps it could be moved past. Elder Morpheus stood to speak. The ancient being looked tired, more tired than before. 5 years ago, I warned this council not to attack the humans. No one listened. The Empire paid the price. Today, we gather to discuss what has happened since and what it means for the galaxy. The council head, the being of pure energy, gestured for to speak. Ambassador, please tell the council what humanity has done in the 5 years since the war. He looked around the hall, meeting the eyes of beings from hundreds of worlds. When the war ended, we had a choice. We could we could enslave them as they tried to enslave us. We could take revenge for the millions they killed. He paused. We did none of those things. Instead, we offered them a different path. We helped them overthrow their military dictatorship. We helped them establish a democratic government. We provided food and medicine during their recovery. We offered them a choice: remain alone or join us as equals in a new federation. The people chose to join, not because we were forced, but because we saw something we had never seen before. Humanity showed us that strength does not have to mean cruelty, that victory does not have to mean destruction. They showed us mercy when they had every right to show us none. Murmurs ran through the council. Some beings looked skeptical, others looked thoughtful. A delegate from the hegemony stood. They were a militaristic species, conquerors like they had been. This is weakness. You let your enemy survive. They will eventually rebuild their military and attack again. This is foolish. Admiral stood slowly. When she spoke, her voice was cold and hard. Let me be clear, mercy is not weakness. We defeated the completely. We could have wiped them from existence. We chose not to because that is not who we are, but do not mistake our choice for inability. She activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the center of the hall. Warships, hundreds of them, all human design. Since the war ended, we have built 2,000 warships. Our technology has advanced by 50 years. We have military bases in 30 star systems. We have alliances with 17 species who saw what we did and chose to stand with us. The display changed, showing ships flying alongside human ones, their hulls marked with the symbols of the new Federation. They are not our subjects, they are our partners. Their ships patrol our borders. Their soldiers train with ours. We trust them because we gave them a reason to be trustworthy. The delegate sat down, looking unsettled. Another delegate spoke, a peaceful species that had never participated in war. Ambassador, why are you here today? What does humanity want from this council? Look directly at them. We want the same thing we wanted 5 years ago, recognition and respect, but we also want to make something very clear to every species in this galaxy. What happened to the will happen to anyone who attacks humanity or our allies. We will defend ourselves. We will win. And when we win, we will offer peace. But if that peace is rejected, if someone forces us to fight again, we will not stop until the threat is completely eliminated. He turned to address the entire council. We do not want to be conquerors. We do not want an empire, but we will never again stand helpless while others decide our fate. Earth is not weak. Humanity is not weak. And we will remember every species that stood by and did nothing when we needed help. The hall was silent. Elder Morpheus spoke again. I have lived for 1,000 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have seen species come and go, but I have never seen anything like what humanity has accomplished. They turned their greatest enemy into their closest friend. They won a war through determination and then won the peace through wisdom. He looked around the council. To any species here today that looks at humanity and thinks they see an opportunity, think again. You may win battles against them. You may kill millions of them, but you will never break them. They will adapt, they will endure, and they will never stop coming until you are defeated. This is what I tried to tell this is what I tell you now. A small species near the back stood. They were a people who had been raided by the decades ago. The Republic wishes to formally request membership in the Human Federation. We have seen what you stand for. We want to stand with you. Smiled, your request will be considered with honor. 13 more species stood, one after another making the same request. The human sphere of influence was growing, not through conquest but through choice. The delegate stood again, looking uncomfortable. The hegemony has reconsidered our position. We propose a treaty of non-aggression and trade with the Human Federation. We believe it is in everyone's interest to maintain peace. Admiral nodded. We accept. Peace is always preferable to war. The council took a formal vote. By unanimous decision, they recognized the Human Federation as a major galactic power. They established the Federation as a permanent member of the council. And they created a new initiative, a peacekeeping force led by humans to prevent wars before they started. After the session ended and stood on a balcony overlooking the council city, below them, beings from 1,000 worlds went about their lives. Ships came and went from the spaceport. It was peaceful, normal. Do you think it will last? Asked. The peace was quiet for a moment. I think we have shown the galaxy something important, that humans can be fierce enemies but also loyal friends, that we fight when we must but prefer peace when we can. Will it last forever? Probably not. But maybe we have bought ourselves a few generations of peace. That is worth something. Smiled slightly. Sara would have liked to see this, and Colonel Marines, and all the others who did not make it. They saw it in their minds, said. They fought for this moment, even knowing they would not live to see it. That is the real strength of humanity. We fight for the future, not just the present. Far away on Earth, children played in parks that had been bomb shelters during the war. Cities that had been damaged were rebuilt, better than before. Factories that had made weapons now made tools for peace. The scars remained, but life went on. On Prime, children went to schools where they learned about the war. They learned what their empire had done. They learned about the humans who had defeated them and then helped them rebuild. They learned that enemies could become friends if both sides chose understanding over hatred. In space, mixed crews of humans and patrolled the borders of the Federation. They worked together, ate together, and became friends. The old hatreds faded, slowly but surely. Captain Jinnah, now a wing commander, led a training exercise with new pilots. Half were human, half were. She taught them the same lessons she had learned. Stay together, stay smart, and never give up. Commander retired from the military and became a teacher, training the next generation of intelligence officers. He taught them how to think, how to adapt, and how to use their minds as weapons. But he also taught them when not to fight, when to seek peace instead of war. Medic received the highest medal the Federation could give. The image of her protecting children had become a symbol of what humanity stood for. She accepted the medal but immediately returned to work. There were always people who needed help, and she would always be there for them. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was not to be trifled with, but more importantly, humanity was not to be feared if you came in peace. They were the fiercest enemies and the most loyal friends. And so the warning went out, passed from species to species, becoming legend. Do not attack the humans. You will never escape their fury, but if you come in peace, you will never find a better ally. The humans had won more than a war. They had won respect, trust, and a place among the stars. And they had done it by staying true to who they were. Survivors, fighters, and ultimately, people who believed that even in the darkest times, hope and mercy were worth fighting for. The story of the human war would be told for generations, not as a tale of conquest, but as a reminder that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to know when to show mercy. And in the great hall of the Galactic Council, a new plaque was installed. It bore the names of every species that had joined the Federation. At the top, two names stood together, human and former enemies, now brothers and sisters, united in peace. This was humanity's gift to the galaxy, the proof that even the worst conflicts could end in friendship if both sides had the courage to try.